I just want to get through the
Waste of
story.
resources. Yeah. Yeah. Perfectly fair.
I used to have an old typewriter. I really liked it.
I used to have a typewriter too. Kind of inherited it
Oh
from
yeah.
my grandpa.
Oh, this the old playthrough is still there.
Huh. Shout out to old psych and man who shall not be named.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Alright, so I'm not going to bother with these dogs. I am just going to run. Let them sleep.
Good doggy.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Okay. What the heck? Hold on. Right there, you see the poster right there, like the wanted poster, whatever that's supposed to be?
Oh yeah.
The one at the bottom
Face.
doesn't it look like Chris Chan right there, the sixth one? Looks like Chris Chan's mugshot.
The sixth one.
Yeah.
Oh my god! I was looking at the completely wrong thing. That looks like Chris Chan. What the hell?
Okay, so here we are right here, do. Yeah, like this right here. This looks like Italy.
I can tell you, having been in Italy before, yeah. Yeah. Just looks like a part of a, like the end of like a long shopping street in Italy.
Yeah, a lot of American cities are not built like this. I mean, there's some areas like that might be like compact like that, especially older parts of like, I would say like older parts of San Francisco or Los Angeles, maybe.
I mean, you gotta also remember there's like so many people in America. You need a lot of space. Chill.
Oh my god. She's soy jacked right there.
Yeah. This one is so gruesome. Flash.
No. And then they add in the later versions of Resident Evil 2, they added the Brad zombie that you could kill.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Whoa! What's happening with this audio there? Okay, it was like somebody was firing like a Mac. a Mac 10.
I heard that. I was like, well, that's not normal. You should definitely open that door.
Don't open that door. Did you ever see the Game Boy Color version of Resident Evil 1 that was never released? Like, they never finished it, but, like, the prototype is out and you can play it.
Yeah, it's like a visual novel, kinda.
And then there's the bootleg NES remake made by a Chinese developer, which is kinda interesting. It uses combat from Resident Evil Gaiden.
Have you played the light gun Resident Evil games?
You mean like Dead Aim? I never got a chance to. I wanted to. Now that they, like, I saw a video, by, like, Tech Dweeb, where he talked about these new, the latest, like, light gun emulation controllers, that use infrared, and, I don't know, he gave it a very, like, gave them a very stellar review, and that makes me think, like, yeah, like, okay, I might want to get stuff like that just so I can play a lot of light gun stuff that isn't easy to emulate on a lot of devices.
Would be cool, because there's a bunch of them on Wii, like Operation Raccoon City. I had one of them, I don't know which one I had. It wasn't that good, but it was fine enough if you just wanted to play like a light gun shooter at home. I could operate it if I had a STARS card. Jill, did you leave your STARS card at home? What do you think of the new design for Jill in the remake?
I don't mind it. I just didn't like how... So, here's the thing. When you look at this outfit, let me see if I can get a good look at it real quick. See if there's a good frame where I can take a good look at Jill here in her.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I don't mind that they decided to give Jill in the remake a more tactical, probably more practical outfit. That I don't have a huge issue. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I'm not one of those people who kind of is like, you know,
Raptor pants.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, DEI.
Yeah. It's just, don't act like that's not why you did like what you're doing. You know what I mean? Be honest.
Yeah.
Be honest and be like, hey, you know what? We just want we want this game to be a little more respectable, and you know, etc. Like, you know, back then, you know, we just wanted Jill to look sexy because, you know, it looks sexier. And now we're kind of prioritizing something a little more that we feel is a little more realistic, etc. You know, I just, like, it was kind of obvious. Like, people tried to argue that wasn't really what it was, right?
It's so obvious.
And then, like, that they didn't do that just mainly to cater to a certain demographic of people, you know, particularly like game journalists, you know, types who, you know, might be more critical of, like, something like that. Because, and you know that's not what happened, because later on, what's that card game, that gacha card game that Capcom runs?
It's a card game that Capcom runs. Let me look it up.
But there was like a gacha game that Capcom, that had a Resident Evil tie-in, and Jill...
Oh, yeah.
Jill from Resident Evil Nemesis was one of the characters. And she's wearing her tube top and her skirt and everything. She has her original outfit, and this was at the same time that the Resident Evil 3 remake was announced. So why is it that in that game Jill is sporting her classic outfit, but in the remake she's wearing something a little more conservative?
Let's see.
Because it's a gacha game. It's a gacha game geared more towards a niche group of otaku, most likely. It's not geared towards mainstream North American video game journalists. You know, they don't care. You know, so they're not really too concerned about that. So, like, don't tell me that's not what you're doing. If you felt like you needed to do that, you know, I understand. You know,
yeah.
But don't lie to me and tell me that's not what you're doing.
Yeah. The game is called Teppen.
Teppen, that's what it was.
Teppen, yeah, and she basically looks the same here as she does in the original Resident Evil 3.
Yeah, and that was at the same time. So, like, why, like...
Yeah, you couldn't do that. I mean,
it's because, yes, these remakes are targeted towards a more, quote-unquote, mainstream, quote-unquote, demographic that is, you know... these games are big. These games are much bigger now. They need to sell a lot of North American sales. Otherwise, they're, you know, just to break even sometimes. And so
that is true.
You know, I get it. I understand, but you know, I as a longtime fan of this franchise who was supporting these sorts of games back when, you know, video games weren't a quote unquote respectable medium. You know, you know.
Tell me about it, man. Tell me about it.
There is kind of just this feeling of like, you know, yeah, they're not really, you know, they're not quite like I'm not the primary concern here. People like me who, you know, have been playing video games since the SNES days when they were a much smaller, more niche thing, and you know, everybody thought that video games either made you a devil worshiper or a school shooter or a juvenile delinquent or a nerd.
Yeah.
You know. So that was what my issue with that, but at the time. But I don't mind the outfit like that. Like, I don't have a problem with it.
It's fine.
And
it's fine.
Yeah, it probably makes more sense, you know. But
it's not even changed that much. It basically isn't. She's, instead of the sweater she has around her waist right now, she just has like a gun holster and like elbow pads and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically it. They didn't change it that much.
But that also kind of highlights some of the difference in tone. Like Resident Evil 1 draws a lot of its inspiration from, old horror movies, and then Resident Evil 2 and 3 are more action oriented, and then that reaches its peak with Resident Evil 4. When you get to Resident Evil 4, like, these are kind of like, like I'm trying to find a good way to explain it. When you get to Resident Evil 4, the original Resident Evil 4, it's kind of goofy and feels like almost like, yeah, you can tell these are Japanese people who've watched a lot of dumb American action movies with like Arnold Schwarzenegger and and stuff. So Leon,
it's very cheesy.
Yeah, Leon is sitting there busting stupid one-liners and doing kung fu kicks, and there's bullet time slow motion crap going on, and like you were saying, like you didn't like how Resident Evil 4 sort of changed the franchise a bit, and I can agree with that. But also, it is kind of a continuation of the tone in Resident Evil 2 and 3 when it does become a little more like an action horror movie kind of thing.
That is true.
Whereas with Resident Evil 1, I would say it's more like, it feels more like a B or Z grade horror movie from like. I mean, the whole thing
like
was originally conceived as as part of a an evolution of Sweet Home.
Yeah, Sweet Home. I remember that game. Have you played that game before? It's hard.
No, I haven't. So, like, and here, like, Dino Crisis kind of does that too. Like at the end, when it's like at the end of Dino Crisis, what does Regina do? She's like, "You're extinct," and blows up the T-Rex and stuff. Like, that's the tone of these.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the remakes, it almost feels like, you're taking this, like, they don't quite have that playfulness, I guess. I'm not sure how to word it.
They're kind of taking themselves a bit too serious in a way.
Yeah, and so then it's like, okay, we can't do that like we did in the original because we want people to take this more seriously now. Not that I think, like, I mean, these things, I mean, both Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 still scared the crap out of me. So if
yeah,
as a kid, but yeah, there's something about the tone where they feel just a little cheesier and intentionally so.